You're listening to Keith Engle, the host of TGI Sports Talk on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
Good evening, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talk's College Football Huddle. Glad to have you. Sorry, just reading something out of chat here. Glad to have you with me here tonight. Lots and lots to talk about. I just wanted to see if we were actually broadcasting live on any of my platforms, because we have these problems every now and again, and I want to make sure that we're broadcasting live, which I do not see myself on mine. Bear with me a minute, guys, because StreamYard and there we go. Good. We're good there. We'll check TGI Sports Talk here in a second. I want to welcome everybody watching on Facebook, our personal page, our college football, our TGI Sports Talk page. We're live also on YouTube and Twitter tonight. Good to have you all with us. I want to thank everybody who lets us share to their groups, including, of course, John Gonzalez at Sports Authorities, Flo at the Bottom Line Sports, great podcast over there. He broadcasts his stuff to Let's Talk Sports, who's a friend of this show and lets us share. Ken Krause at Golf Buds, Sports of All Sorts, and certainly all of those. The rest of you out there who are tuning in, we appreciate that. Thumbs up, DDH. Glad for you are looking over us all the time. And a quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media. Ralph does some great stuff down there in Pittsburgh, including the sports corner with Smoking Jim Frazier from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern every Tuesday evening. I appreciate it. Guys, I'm a little flustered. I'm trying to get myself back in here. I had to quickly host the professional sports show on Northeast Streaming Sports earlier. Oh, by the way, we're live on Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel. How did I miss that? Just hosted the professional sports show over there, as Mac is a bit laid up. So we kind of winged it tonight over there. And today we're going to talk about college football, as we always do. We'll talk some college basketball maybe, and I want to say in a quick rest in peace and Godspeed to one of the best college basketball coaches I've seen in my lifetime. Didn't win national championships, won some Big East championships, had a great team in 1986. Louis Carnesecca passed away at 99 years old this past weekend, just a few weeks short of being 100. No more colorful character, and maybe again that was a coach's league when it started, the Big East, and Louis Carnesecca was one of those guys that made that league go. And our condolences go to his family, friends, all these ex-players at St. John's and the St. John's program in general. His players were very close to him throughout his life. I mean, Matt Brust, who's a good friend of this show. Matt, I know sometimes you tune in to the College Football Huddle. If you do, my condolences to you and all of your teammates that you played with and those that played before and after you. I know the love that you guys had for Louis, and it's a sad moment when an icon like that passes away, but man, what a great run at 99 years old, right? So we can talk a little college basketball later in the show, but we're going to get into some stuff tonight. Good evening, Danny Fuller out there in sunny Los Angeles, or at least in California. We hope you're feeling better, Danny. We're glad you're up to being with us today. We don't want to cause any more incidents, so don't let me upset you today. Welcome back, Danny, for sure. We want you here. Paul Spada, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever we got here. Paul is our Patriots fan who lives out in Wisconsin and is an Oregon football fan. He's probably happy. Oregon will face off now with Penn State in the Big Ten championship game this weekend. We'll talk a lot about those games here coming up. So how you doing? And then Rick, small steps, Danny says, make sure you do what everybody tells you to do. Doctors and your wife, by the way. You'll get no better advice than you'll get from your wife. Took me a while to learn that. Guys, another crazy weekend. Those who weren't excited about a 12-team playoff, you should be. Every week, things blow up. Ohio State goes in as a huge favorite, 24-point favorite, one of the biggest spreads probably in this OSU-Michigan rivalry. I'm sure there's been other big ones, but I got to believe this is maybe the worst loss by any team in this rivalry. Ohio State with a $20 million basically roster, playing at home, 20-plus point favorite, playing against a walk-on quarterback, a first-year head coach, and a mediocre team at best. They can't throw the forward pass barely, and they find a way to lose this game, lose their chance at a first-round bye. Maybe Ryan Day is going to lose his job if he doesn't win the national championship. You can't lose 4 straight to Michigan if you're the Ohio State coach. But that wasn't the only team that shot themselves in the foot. My own, go ahead, put up the convict comments. With myself in attendance and my family, the Miami Hurricanes go to Syracuse, big favorite, 11 points. And I said right here for a couple of weeks that Syracuse had a puncher's chance in this game because they had a really good offense. And McCord, when hot, is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And he is. And Ohio State probably could have used him. After getting down 21-0, Miami totally blows this game. For some reason, Marco Cristobal decides, after not stopping Boston College for about 3 hours, to go to kick a field goal with 4 minutes left in the game, down 7. You're never going to see the ball again, Marco. And that's exactly what happened. They're out of the playoff. We'll go through the rankings in a bit. I know they're number 12. Doesn't matter. They're out of the playoff. They're 12. The Big 12 champion is going to get in and bump the 12 team out. There's no chance of Miami getting dropped or not getting dropped out. 0. If SMU loses to Clemson and then Clemson gets in and has got to bump somebody, is SMU going to fall out and Miami stays in when they had to play an extra game? They didn't play each other. There's no other tiebreaker to look at. SMU is going to stay in that large team. Miami will be out and Bama will be in. And there are a lot of arguments to make. I mean, everybody's flawed. Once you get to 10, 11, maybe even less than that, 8, all these teams are flawed. That's what happens when you have a 12-team playoff. You're going to have flawed teams get in. And every one, you can make an argument for South Carolina, but Alabama beat them. Head-to-head matters. The committee's a little bit inconsistent because, again, they say Alabama is in because, good wins matter. But at the top, you got Penn State, who hasn't beaten anybody. You got Texas, who hasn't beaten anybody. Notre Dame, who their best win is Texas A&M, who may have fallen out of the rankings this week. Where did they end up? I'll get to your comments. We're going to go through this. This is going to be our conversation for most of the night. Paul brought up National Signing Day is today. We can get into that if you like. But this playoff picture is pretty clear right now. As you look at, I'll get to your comments in a second. I'm going to go through these just so we see who 1 through 12 is. Oregon stays number 1. No argument there, right? 12-0, the only undefeated team left in the country. Texas moves up 1 from 3. Ohio State falls down to 6, by the way. I had them falling to 8, I believe. Where's my notes from Sunday? Yeah, I thought they'd fall to 8. I had Tennessee actually at 7. Good pick. Anyway, I had Texas. Penn State moves up to 3 without having played anybody. They move themselves into the Big Ten championship game. Texas will play Georgia, who already had locked up the Big Ten or the SEC, half of the SEC matchup. Texas really dominated Texas A&M, 17-7. Wasn't that close. I was listening to the game on the radio coming home from the Syracuse-Miami game. Hey, what are you going to do? Notre Dame moves up to 4, as I had predicted. Now, again, these are a little misleading because I don't know why they rank these teams. This isn't how they'll be seeded, right? Texas and Oregon Oregon and Penn State can't be 1 and 3. One of them's going to drop to 5 or 6. Notre Dame can't be 4. They're going to be 5 or 6. 5 might be the really best spot to be in this tournament, by the way. Georgia is number 5 right now. Ohio State falls to 6. Tennessee 7. SMU 8. I did have SMU up to 6. That was the big one that I had switched Ohio State and SMU. Indiana 9, which I had. Boise State 10, which I had. Alabama 11. And I did have Arizona State getting into that 12 spot. They come in at 15. It's not really going to matter. They've got Miami at the 12 spot, and it won't matter. Arizona State or Iowa State is going to be in the field, and it's only a matter of whether they finish ahead of Boise State. Boise State's the other. So there's 2 all these other teams are in. Everybody, Oregon's in. Oregon's in, win or lose. You're not going to, they're not going to penalize, I don't think, any of the conference championship participants who might lose. SMU is the only one that's maybe questionable. But the problem is, who are you going to bump up if you take SMU out? I'm surprised they slotted Miami where they did. Alabama's in. Their games are over. There's no way they're getting bumped out of here unless SMU loses and they want to keep them in, and Vegas gets bumped and they want to keep Boise State in. That's probably not going to happen. Indiana's locked in. Well, I'm sorry. Georgia's locked in, win or lose. Ohio State's done. They're in. Tennessee's done. They're in. Indiana's done. They're in. Alabama's done. They're in. And guys, I'm sorry. You can complain about Alabama being in all you want, but they belong in. They really do. Let me get to some of your comments here. Are we excited? I'm excited, man. I'm excited about the games this weekend. We'll go through them and we'll make some picks. Wow, how can you not be excited about what we're watching here? The matchups are going to be tremendous. That's one thing that's really at play here. The seeding is going to be very important for the matchups because the matchups we'll look at tonight aren't likely to be what we see next week. Very unlikely. Who do I see as the most disappointing college football team this year? Good question, Rick. Well, if you look, Florida State, I had Florida State in the Final Four. How bad is that? I don't think anybody picked that team to win 2 games this year. No matter how you feel about them quitting last year and whatnot, we don't have to necessarily drudge that all up. But if you want to just look at this year, this ended up being a very bad football team. They were ranked in the top 10 before the year. They're disappointing. Kansas was a big disappointment. They played very good football here the last month, they kind of blew up the Big 12, the Big 12 contenders this last month. So I would say those are the teams that stick out for me. You guys can mention anybody you want. Missouri maybe as well, finishing 9-3. But again, they were ranked like 5th to start the season. That shows you what preseason polls are worth, right? Listen, the Ducks are the prohibitive favorite here. But conceivably, and this is one of the things I think that the committee is going to have to think about, or not the committee, but the people that run the college football playoff, which is not the NCAA, by the way. Be clear. Sorry for my cough. one thing they need to look out is, I think, potentially reseeding these teams once you get to the where's damn it, I wanted my bracket. Where's my bracket? I want the bracket. How do I get? Yeah, man. All I want is a bracket. That's all I want. Can you not give me the bracket I want? Anyway, I'm not finding what I want. I got it here somewhere and I just lost it. I apologize. All right, here, I'll find it right here. Here we go. So the bracket right now would have Ohio State, Tennessee winner going to play Oregon. Okay. The 5-team Penn State, Arizona State would go play Boise. Seems like an easier road for Boise than for Oregon, doesn't it? On a neutral field. You know, Penn State's going to get a home game and then they're going to get to go to Boise or on a neutral field. Georgia would go, and Indiana would go to Texas, Notre Dame, Alabama to SMU. Now, I think you may need to reseed these teams. You can give these teams a bye if you want, but I think you need to reseed these teams once you get to the quarterfinals. Oregon conceivably is going to have a tougher path, at least the first round, than say the 5 seed would have. So anyway, Oregon's going to have a tough matchup in the second half. No matter what happens, they're going to get that 8-9 game. And right now, there's good teams in that 8-9 spot. Quack. Who cares? Danny's feeling better. We said it 2 weeks ago, Bama would find a way. I think I said that, right? And I know you did too, Danny. Things had to break just right. But again, and people are all up in arms, but I'm not sure how you can argue this result. I mean, when you look at it, so here's the teams just left out. Here are the teams that got left behind, right? Miami. I can't make an argument for Miami. Even as a fan, I cannot make an argument for Miami over Alabama. Louisville's the best win on their resume. Alabama's beaten. Who's Alabama beaten? Hold on a second. Well, let me just go here. Alabama's beaten a bunch of ranked teams. They beat like 6 ranked teams this year. Miami's beaten 1. I'm going to find it here eventually. Sorry. So they beaten ranked teams. They beat South Carolina. They lost to Tennessee. They beat Missouri. They beat LSU. Well, I guess they only got 3 ranked teams. Well, that's ranked now, but they lost to Vanderbilt. That's their biggest hang-up, right? I believe when they beat, no, I guess maybe that's it. They did go to Wisconsin and win a good, tough place to play on the road. But again, how are you going to say Miami belongs in there? How are you going to say Ole Miss belongs in there when they go to Florida with a chance to put things to bed for themselves and they get beat up pretty badly? I mean, who else are you going to put in there? Give me a reason. I went through this Sunday and I didn't get any reasonable results. Right now, Alan, how are you, buddy? Right now, I feel every team that's in will be in. The 12 teams, Boise State, Arizona State, and Alabama are the only teams I feel could get eliminated. Well, Arizona State's not in the field. They still got to win. They have to beat Iowa State, and who's not in the rankings right now either. One of them two is going to be in there. Miami cannot be the 12th seed. Miami's out. Don't forget that, Alan. So I guess you're saying with the projected standings that they have here, right? Which would have Arizona State winning the Big 12. Boise State winning the Mountain West. Alabama, I don't see how Alabama gets bounced. Because as you said, I think SMU stays. And if Clemson wins, Clemson's going to be in the tournament, likely the 12th seed. And I think SMU still stays in the tournament as an at-large. I don't see any way you can move Miami up there. And you're going to jump Ole Miss and South Carolina over Miami. In fact, to be honest with you, I would not have ranked Miami 12. I would have had Ole Miss. I think I would have had South Carolina 13. Who did I have? Hold on. Who did I have here? I had first out was South Carolina. This might be from a couple of weeks ago. I just grabbed the wrong one, didn't I? No, I didn't. Right here. Sorry about that. South Carolina, Ole Miss, Miami. I'm not sure how they rank Miami ahead of Ole Miss and South Carolina. The schedule that Miami played this year did not match the SEC schedule either one of these teams had to play. I'm okay ranking them above Iowa State. They're going to look at Iowa State can take care of business anyway. Arizona State can take care of business anyway. I think this is your matchup. I like Arizona State to beat Iowa State this week, by the way. They're playing some great football. Great football. I don't think Alabama gets bounced because I think SMU loses. I do not think they'll bounce. I think they'll probably find a way to keep Alabama in there. Well, they would bounce down to no, they wouldn't. How would he keep? So if SMU gets bounced, well, I guess the other team that's got to be careful then is if SMU stays in, then Alabama could get bounced. I'm trying to figure this out. I thought I had this figured out in my head. Well, regardless, there is a scenario where Alabama isn't in, but they're going to need some help. Georgia is going to be in. Georgia's not going to fall from 5 to out unless they get totally blown out of the building. Georgia's safe. There's no way Georgia falls out. Again, if they had ranked them at 8 or 9, I would say that, but were them 5th. I don't see any way, given what they've done in the past here, this committee, I don't see any way Georgia gets bounced here unless they get absolutely trampled this weekend. And Texas shows me no indication they can do that. And Georgia's also beat them once this year. It's the only team Georgia's, the best team Texas played all year. Texas, I think all the losers of their tournaments are probably safe, of their championships are probably safe. Interesting enough, too, all 4 major conferences could have first years in the conference teams win their conference chips. I think that's remarkable. And I wonder if it tells you, what does it tell us? Does it tell us that these leagues weren't as good as say the SEC and the Big Ten specifically? Forget about the ACC and the Big 12. They're obviously a notch down. But is the SEC and Big Ten not quite at the great heights that they think they are? When teams come from other inferior conferences in their minds and may win their conference championships the first year out. Interesting to think about. I do think SMU would stay in. That would mean Clemson would bump Alabama out. That's really the only scenario there is, Alan, as I look at it. Maybe if I'm looking at it in the rankings, it's a little easier. As I'm looking at the bracket, it's just not working for me. Because I thought I had this. Hold on. I thought I had this. So SMU stays in, Clemson comes in, Boise or UNLV's got to be in. Obviously, Big 12 teams got to be in. So hold on, I think there's still So you replace Miami with the Big 12 team. Yeah, I guess if SMU were to lose and stay in the bracket, boy, I'll tell you, there I think I would have a problem. I don't have a problem with Alabama being in this tournament. I think if SMU loses their conference championship and Alabama slides in there, especially after what they did to Florida State last year, winning their conference. I know it was 4 teams. I think there'd be an uproar here if SMU doesn't make it. We'll see. Rick, OSU. Oklahoma State, zero. Who saw this coming? I mean, this conference was upside down all season, Alan. Your team should have stayed. They would have won this conference going away. No, I'm just kidding. They aren't that good. Arizona State, BYU, Colorado, Baylor, all picked, and TCU probably, but we'll just stick with these top 5 teams. Arizona, BYU, Colorado, Baylor, all picked near the bottom of this conference when the season started. Oklahoma State, Utah finish and Kansas finish in the bottom 7. All were the favorites to win this conference. And I said there was legitimately 7 teams with a chance to win or finish 7th. Well, Oklahoma State, Utah, Kansas, all were in those 7, and they finished way below 7th. Arizona State never came into play. Iowa State, I think, I had in that ranking. BYU, no. Colorado, no. Baylor, no. TCU, no. Texas Tech, no. You got to go all the way down to 8th in the conference to get a team that I said had a chance to win, and most people said had a chance to win. Don Brown, good evening. How are you, buddy? Bama or OSU in the tournament or can beat each other? Not sure about the context of your question, Don. Liking who you root for. I'm looking to see if I get a clue. I always look at people's profile picture to see if I can get a glimmer of who they are. I'm guessing you're a Ohio State guy. Nah, I'm going to say Alabama guy. After what I saw last week, Ryan Day, by the way, is not a good game day coach. He's a good offensive coordinator, and maybe that's what he's going to be if he leaves Ohio State. Maybe he goes to the NFL. Maybe if the Browns move on from Stefanski or something, maybe they hire him as a head coach. But my guess is he may get out ahead of the posse. If he does not win the national championship, he may be out of here. He's not a good game day coach. I would take Kalen DeBoer in that matchup, coaching-wise. Jalen Milroe is still a dynamic player. They've got some dynamic players around him, not like they had in the past. But this is still a good football team, and I think on game day, I think OSU chokes it up. If we're talking about a Bama-OSU matchup. Ryan Day, he's just, I mean, God, every game I've seen where Ohio State is getting a battle, he just seems to be out of control on the sidelines. There's no calm to me. Nick Saban would get excited, but it's a different kind of out of control that I see in Ryan Day. I see there's like a fear in his eyes. Scary thought. National champion Oregon Ducks, maybe. I'm still, and I know I picked them in the preseason, and I faltered with them with a lot of people after they lost to Northern Illinois. This might be Notre Dame's best chance to win a national championship since 1988. There's no great team here. Oregon is the best team in the country. And the way the matchups look right now, crap. Did I just get rid of I did. Let me get back to the bracket. Come on. All right. Anyway, the way the matchups look right now, I think Notre Dame's got a pretty favorable path to have a potential at least Final Four. ranking here. Ryan Day, by the way, says he has no plans to leave. That just must have come up since I last refreshed this page. Let me get to the matchups here. Now, there's no guarantee. I think right now they've got Notre Dame 6. I think Notre Dame probably finishes 6th because I don't think that they're going to get ahead of Penn State or ahead of Georgia, depending on what the outcome of these games are. But Notre Dame would theoretically, they'd get Alabama at home. That'd be very interesting. They've had their trouble with Alabama in the past. This is not a great Alabama team. If I'm down on Ryan Day, I'm probably starting to climb the ladder on Marcus Freeman again. I'm not jumping back on that wagon yet. At least I like the team. The coach is still a little, again, to Rick's point. I defended this guy for years, and then after that NIU game, the way they were not using Riley Leonard correctly. Now, that game woke them up, woke the team up, woke the coaching staff up. The coaching staff understands how to use Riley Leonard now. Notre Dame getting a home game in this first round is going to be huge for them, and they will get a home game, whether it's Alabama or somebody else traveling up there. Then they'd end up with SMU, theoretically, if that's the way it plays out, and they're the 3rd seed. Then they got to match up with either Texas, Georgia, or Indiana. I like that matchup for Notre Dame. The half of the bracket, again, this is going to change a lot in the next week. Not the teams necessarily, but where they are. So I still like Notre Dame's chances, by the way. Oklahoma's loss was much worse than Vandy. I'm not so sure. I mean, I'm not so sure. I think they're both equally as bad. I mean, you're telling me, Alan, I have a hard time believing as an Oklahoma fan, you really believe your team is worse than Vanderbilt. Did Vanderbilt end up in these last rankings? No. Nowhere to be found in the rankings. Oklahoma, also nowhere to be found. But Vandy had some good games this year. There's no way as a program Vanderbilt's even close to Oklahoma or should be. Losing to Vanderbilt is far worse than losing to Oklahoma. Far worse. And I've been very hard on your Oklahoma Sooners. But I don't think that's fair. Put your, what is that emoji? Oh, is that money? Where that Florida-Wisconsin quack is. Cameron DeRocker, how are you, buddy? Good to have you with us tonight. I know this is against what people think, but I'm with you. I think Bama deserves a spot. It did end up smacking Georgia in the end, but they did get ahead in that game 27-0, I think it was. They feel they can beat any team in the playoff. Hey, listen, there's this team. This is a wide open playoff, Cameron, for sure. I mean, Oregon is the best team in this tournament that'll be coming up. I do think they'll beat Penn State easily. I mean, James Franklin doesn't beat anybody in the top 5 ever. Now, Oregon is not Ohio State and Michigan as far as, historically losing to, as James Franklin has. But he doesn't beat good teams. And he hasn't shown me anything this year that shows me he should. I mean, we talk about Bama. Who's Penn State beating this year? I know they got one loss. You have to take the wins-loss records into consideration. But I can make an argument that Bama's a better team than Penn State. They barely got out of Minnesota 2 weeks ago. And if they didn't, we'd be having a conversation about whether they were in the field or not. There's no sure thing here. Alabama, Notre Dame, I think is going to be a very, very, very good game in the first round, Cameron. If that's what it matches up as, I think there's very good chance that's going to stay that way. I think SMU beats Clemson this week. I I love Clemson, by the way, or SMU. See, we're going to look at these games in a little bit. SMU's a 2.5-point favorite. This game will be played where? Bank of America Stadium in North Carolina. Maybe a regional advantage for Clemson, nothing more. Clemson's been very up and down, mediocre. Blew this game against South Carolina in a long-time rivalry last week. Probably a meaningless game because it wasn't a league game and they weren't getting a large a bid no matter what. But I like SMU, so I think they hold serve, and I do think Boise State will hold serve as well. We'll look at all the games here in just a little bit. But I have defended Alabama getting in this field for the last couple of weeks. Yeah, I like ASU. I think. Listen, and this team, they get into the playoff playing as well as they are. Dillingham, I think, is the youngest coach in the country, if I'm not mistaken. He's put some great fire into this program, if you will. He's changed the whole culture of the Arizona State program, one that was a mess. Herm Edwards left a mess behind in Arizona, and it took a year. I think they won 3 games in Dillingham's first year. But he's done a great job here. And this team has really caught fire at the right time. And the way the tournament's set up now, it's kind of like basketball. If you get hot at the right time and you can ride that wave, who knows what can happen. Bama basically needs SMU to beat Clemson to stay in. Pretty much. I mean, I could have swore I saw another path earlier. Alan, but I can't see it now. And I do think if SMU holds serve, as they should, Bama will safely be in. There's no other path to knocking them out. A Clemson victory is the only thing that can knock Bama out of this tournament. Because if, let's say, Boise State loses to UNLV, they're not putting 2 Mountain West teams in this tournament. That's not happening. Boise's going to be playing on the blue field in the Idaho Potato Bowl. Realist. Big difference. Show me what? Show me the quack banner, then blow. Just say. I'm not sure what's going on. What's that? They. And they blow it? Oh, and they blow it. I see. Okay. Did Herm Edwards set the framework for Arizona's success? No, he didn't. I mean, he left that program was under investigation when he left. A lot of players had transferred out of there. Dillingham basically was starting from scratch last year. I believe they had 3 wins. And Edwards is not. I mean, Herm Edwards did not do well. He did not. You guys are not remembering. Herm did not set the framework for success. I mean, other than getting himself fired, which did. Here's a story just from 21 hours ago in the Washington Post. College coach's biggest mess needed a 34-year-old coach to clean it up. On Arizona State. I don't want to read about. We can talk about planting the flag if you'd like tonight, I guess. But I guess if I look at Herm, no. What happened to Herm at ASU? 5-year show cause is one of the longest show cause penalties for a head football coach in NCAA history. Arizona State coach Herm Edwards received a 5-year show cause penalty from the NCAA for recruiting violations involving more than 30 prospects during COVID-19 no visit. We were worried about Harbaugh buying hamburgers. So, no, Herm Edwards did not set up Dillingham for success. He set this – we thought he set this program back a decade, but he didn't. Ryan Day is a chocolate artist. Oh, that's interesting. I'm not sure. I like chocolate artists better, James. Sorry. He is. Okay. He's had the best team. He's had the best team probably the last 3 years, arguably. And he got to a semifinal. He played great 2 years ago. He paid $20 million. He didn't, but the program paid $20 million to get transfers in there, including the quarterback, who's come up small. I liked Will Howard coming in here into this season. I thought it was a great fit. But in crucial moments, he wilts. And I really think that choke artist, again, I think that the way Ohio State plays at crunch time is a direct reflection of their head coach, who seems out of control on the sidelines in the biggest moments of the game. And I don't see that changing. He looks miserable. He looks like I would look if I was as stressed out as he probably is. And I'm 20 years older than he is. Your stankies tonight. Lots of errors in the fifth inning. Thank you. Tim Dragula agrees with Alabama. Listen, I've slandered Tim Dragula enough. I don't think I need to continue to put myself at risk. Do I? Oh, God. I'll tell you a story, though, that I was told that never mind. I'm not getting into it. If you had conversations with Dracula, you still have conversations with Dracula. I'm confused, Danny. Help me. Oh, Dracula. I haven't had one in a couple weeks. He didn't come in there this week. I think the first week after this little explosion, he wasn't in, and then he came in the week in between. So last week, and he sat with his girlfriend at a table, didn't even come to the bar, and he was very quiet. And I've been told that he's been very quiet every time he's been in there since Keith went up and down on him. And by the way, this is not slander. We joke a lot, and I don't know if the guys at the Weavers are watching tonight. If you are, Mark, I guess there's nobody there to weigh in. One of the things that set me off is he wanted to bet me $1,000 on something. I said, betting $1,000 on your nonsense. The argument really wasn't. We got talking about the ACC tiebreakers and whatnot. And he's a Miami fan, as am I. And he had said Miami's in the conference championship game and they're in the playoff. It's done. They're not losing to Wake Forest or Syracuse. And I said they can easily lose to Syracuse. And guess what? I watched Saturday in person. Them lose to Syracuse. That's what he wanted to bet me $1,000 on, that they would make the ACC championship game. Now, I have bet $1,000 on things before when I was younger and stupid, but I wasn't going to bet on that and then root against a team I root for to not make the playoff. My only point was you can't say they got a cakewalk when they don't, and that proved out, by the way. Hello, JB. How are you, buddy? College football chat. Let's go. Montclair State Red Tail. Well, that's a mouthful. Montclair State Red Tail Hawks. Sam Mills' alma mater. Sam Mills, great linebacker. I'm sure at Montclair State. He was a great linebacker in the USFL, a great linebacker in the NFL. Passed away way too early of cancer, I believe. And I'm sure you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. What are they doing? Who are they playing this weekend? Are they playing somebody? Let me see if I get to the scoreboard here. CAA. Where did they play? I can't go through all these and find out where they play. I'll just look at this one. It's not that one. Last year, this time, too, we were looking at Albany State. Albany going to... I don't know where Montclair State's plays. Are they in a tournament? That's what we just read. How did I get that? Twice. Interesting. Their season's over. Sorry. Here I am looking for them. But anyway, let's look at what else we got going on here. Let's look at the games. Let's look at this weekend's games and what effect will they have? By the way, there is no, as you've noticed, Paul. I'm going to try to give the recap on the college football. You can't pick anymore. I think I can get to, there we go. College football pick 'em. So there's no more picks to be made. We're all done. Unfortunately, last week was the last week. And here's how we did last week for those that were in. Paul actually did very well. Paul and Neil Bush, Beamer Ball, went 8 out of 10. Great job. The Sports Nut was 7 out of 10. The generic ESPN guy had 6. Poppy's Picks had 6. Keith had 6. And Rick had 6. And the rest, unfortunately, had moved on. Hopefully, Scott Kobe, we haven't seen in a few weeks. We hope he's doing all okay as well and hanging in there and staying strong. The winner overall by 1 game over the Sports Nut was the generic ESPN guy with 85 wins, 84 for the Sports Nut. Beamer Ball finished strong with 83. Keith had made a run late in the season, but a 3 in week 12 really shot my lights out. At 81. Rick had 75. Paul had 74. Poppy had 64. And Scott Kobe had 27, but dropped out early. Scott probably would have been in contention if he'd stayed in. But Scott's had some issues, and we do, again, hope he's doing well. The Washington Commanders should have been called the Red Hawks. I think they should be called the Redskins myself. So, whatever. Anything besides Commanders. That's just me. Anyway, UNLV will play in Boise, Idaho, on the blue field against Boise State in the Mountain West tournament. Boise's a 4-point favorite. The over-under is 57.5. They played earlier in the year. Boise State won. I think Vegas is better now. We had the controversy with them, their quarterback and the NIL transfer and all that. I think this team, Boise State has got one of the best players in the country in Janty. 2,200 yards rushing, 28 touchdowns. He's going to finish second, most likely in the Heisman to Travis Hunter, with Cam Ward finishing third. That's my Heisman prediction. I think Boise's got too much for Vegas, especially at home. I think Boise covers this game. Probably will go over, would be my guess. This is college. Paul, stay in your lane. Redskins. You missed a few picks the last couple of weeks. That's not good. You're exactly correct. Redskins, thank you. Playoffs are starting in Pro Football Fantasy. The TGI Sports Talk. The other 2 that I'm in, 2 money leagues, 1 more week, I think. Keith needs to win both weeks to make the playoffs. I did not make the playoffs in TGI Sports Talk. And that's professional, so we'll talk about that on Sunday if you like. Also on Friday night, that game, by the way, is 8 p.m. Friday on Fox. On ABC, Friday night, 8 o'clock. A little surprised they didn't break these games up and play that Boise State game later. Tulane and Army will play in the American Athletic Conference final. Tulane. This game is going to be at Michie Stadium, West Point. Friday night, under the lights. The cadets marching across what do we call that? Can't think of what it is. Anyway, 5-point favorite for Tulane on the road here. Army is 10-1, Tulane 9-3. Best two teams in this conference for sure. Daly has been pretty effective running the football, 25 touchdowns. Army's thrown the ball better. Last year they threw the ball a lot more. They've controlled the football as well as anybody in the country for the most part. I got to like the 5 points. I don't know if Army will win this game, but I think they keep it close. And I like the over, 45.5. I think I like the over in this game. What's this? Keith, want in your TGI Sports Talk? You're in. Make sure you mention it. We'll talk about it the end of the season. We had a couple people that I don't think ever got in the league. I don't think the Mad New Yorker ever got in. I don't think he drafted. I looked at the teams. I know Rick had some concerns. There's not much you can do. CA did the best he could do and thought guys had confirmed they were in. It didn't. I don't think Nick Botkins was playing. I don't think Carlos played, and I thought there was one other one who I don't know. I think the guy who filled out the league last year. So, Paul, you're definitely in. Danny, I can't fix the divisions, Danny. So, anyway, we'll take Army +5 and the over. Saturday at noon, we'll have football wall-to-wall championship games on Saturday. At noon on ABC, Iowa State. This is at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Iowa State will play Arizona State. Arizona State a 2-point favorite. 49.5 is the over. Not really crazy about the over-under, but I like ASU a lot. -2. If I get that number, I'll be very, very happy in this game. I think, I think Dillingham's done a great job there with taking over a complete mess, as I said. 4 p.m. on ABC. I thought this game would be at night. The SEC championship game. Texas. This game is at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Georgia. Little home field advantage for the Georgia Bulldogs. Texas, 11-1, will play Georgia, 10-2. Texas only lost to Georgia. Texas is a 2.5-point favorite. I'm a little surprised. Texas, yours has been banged up. Arch Manning had to come in and made some key plays last week to help this team get past Texas A&M. Rick, I'm going to take your Bulldogs here. +2.5. Not sure about the over-under, only because the last game didn't. I liked the over the last time a lot. I may change my mind on the over-under. Penn State at 8 o'clock on CBS will play at Lucas Oil Stadium. Will play Oregon. Oregon's a 3.5-point favorite. Listen, am I the only guy who thinks Oregon is? I think the two best bets of the weekend are Arizona State and Oregon. I also like SMU a lot. I think they're probably the 3 games I'm going to bet. I may bet 4, depending on what the cigar box rules are this week. I like Oregon a lot. James Franklin doesn't beat top 5, top 10 teams. He just doesn't do it. He hasn't beat a team this year that's any good. West Virginia, middle of the pack in the Big 12. Bowling Green, Mac was terrible this year. Kent State, worst team in the country. Illinois had a pretty good year still. Played them at home. They did finish 19. That's their best win. UCLA, sorry, Danny, not a good football team, right? USC, not a good football team. Wisconsin, not a good football team. They lose their biggest game of the year, Ohio State. on the road. They beat a bad Washington team. They beat a bad Purdue team. They just get by a really bad, I'm sorry, not a really bad, but a decent Minnesota team, but not a team that they should be needing to struggle to win by 1 point against. They beat up Maryland this past weekend. A lot of controversy. Danny, you may feel differently than I, but James Franklin tries to score a touchdown with his third string offense in the game, by the way, against Maryland's first team. You can't tell the kids they can't play. So they score a late touchdown. Mike Loxley, who I like a lot, had some attitude after the game, gave Franklin some attitude. Franklin's right. I had my third team in there. Should I tell him to just lay down? Plus, there's the whole, again, it's built in. I talked about this Sunday. It's built in that you have got to score points. Point differentials are going to make a difference potentially in the seeding, assuming they don't win against Oregon. Point differential in these games matters. Right? They have to go out and they have to beat these teams by a lot. I'm not saying it matters, but whatever. What do you got here before I move on? All right, you and Danny are in. We'll make sure we tell CA. And I will figure out how to do that because we got to drop the Deadwood out. I think there's 3 teams that got to go. I'm sorry, guys, if you're listening and didn't participate. I don't mean you. It's not personal. I'm just talking about league Deadwood. If you weren't participating, then we need to get guys in there that are going to. So you guys are more than welcome to get in. Iowa State game will be great. I think it'll be a good game. I like ASU a lot, though. I just think they're playing some of the best football in the country. Jacksonville State beat reporters are reporting that Rich Rodriguez had agreed to terms to return to West Virginia. Evan, the reporter, breaks some news here. Is that actually true? The place that Rich Rodriguez had really I don't know whether I want to say his best or his only success before a bad choice of Coach Michigan. Hold on. I'm going to put in, see what kind of news we get here. McAfee. Oh, that's nothing. Let's see. Well, I don't see anything that mentions him specifically. I'm not doubting you at all, Evan. I'm looking at just the headlines. And again, I'm not looking in Jacksonville. They might know. Let's see if SI. Which one do I want to look at? Let's look at CBS Sports coaching search. Top candidates. You're not going to give them to me. You're going to tell me it's for top candidates. You're not going to tell me who they are. Thank you very much for that. That's a tough job now, though. It's a much different environment than when Rich Rodriguez was there last. He flamed out at Michigan. He flamed out at Arizona. That would be interesting, though. So I don't see anything. We'll keep an eye on that for sure, Evan. I appreciate you bringing us that news. By the way, speaking of coaching news, there's also chatter that UCF, Central Florida, has reached out to inquire about talking to Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley may be looking to get out in front of the posse at USC. Very interesting. Ewers NFL ready. I think 2 guys. Ewers is a day 2 pick now to me. 2 guys that have really hurt their stock this year as far as quarterbacks coming out in the draft. Rick asked about disappointing teams, disappointing players. Carson Beck has hurt himself. Quinn Ewers, I think, is hurt. I think teams are going to look at those injuries, those little injuries that seem to be so bothersome to him a lot. His play's been steady, but not spectacular. I think both Carson Beck and Ewers are day 2 or or even day 3 potentially picks at the quarterback position. So we'll see what remains to be seen. But Ewers is a great college quarterback, and Carson Beck has led some nice comebacks this year. Unfortunately, he's been the cause of needing to come back from those in a lot of cases as well. 1 p.m. in Cali. What's that for Georgia and Texas? Yeah. Kiffin wins the game and tanks. I'll tell you. Horrible game for them. Dan Lanning, leading candidate for Beats head coaching job. Who? Beats. What is that, Paul? Team will get a steal if they get, yeah. Well, again, this is not a stellar quarterback class, man. Shedeur Sanders is going to get picked way too soon. Did I finish doing the picks, by the way? Got me distracted here. Shedeur Sanders is going to get picked way too soon. Well, we'll look at it in a second. I guess I didn't finish up with Clemson SMU. I like SMU a lot. 2.5-point favorites. Clemson's been very up and down. Klubnik has played well. I'm not a big fan of this Clemson defense. They've given up some big scores to good teams. SMU is a very balanced football team, running the ball. They've got 2 quarterbacks who are very consistent. When one went down, the other stepped up. And their defense, I think, has played respectable and gotten better, and they play big in big spots. I like this team, ranked as high as it has been ranked in almost 40 years. So good job. Rich Rodriguez, Danny Fuller is in the news again at 62. Well, good point. Well, that's the second place we've heard that. The Bears. I don't see Dan Lanning. So you say Dan Lanning's leading candidate for the Bears job? I don't see Dan Lanning coaching in the NFL. At least not yet. I mean, he's a personification of a college football coach to me. And he's done a great job there. I don't know why he'd want to leave. He's got it made in the Northwest. He's the number 1 team up there. They've been very consistent during his time, before his time. He wins a national championship. Maybe he says I was time to move on to the next thing. But they've got a good NAL system up there to be able to pay guys like Dylan Gabriel $2 million to come play there this year. Any players he wants. I don't know why you'd give that up for the NFL right now, where you win in 2 years or you get fired. Especially in Chicago. They restart everything every 2 years. He's a great football coach, Paul. And I know you don't want to lose him. I don't think you're going to lose him myself. Let's see if I can find a story. Dan Lanning to NFL. Let's see what we get. Just to see if anything comes up that I'm missing. Because I don't hear all the news. Yeah. There's one story here from 3 weeks ago. NFL quarterback sends strong messages on Ducks head coach Dan Lanning amidst rumors Oregon can lose him to the pros. He's already secured Dylan Gabriel's replacement for next year, by the way. And I'm sure he's got one of the best recruiting classes in the country. So, again, his name has come up, Paul, but I would think you're not going to lose your head coach. Just don't think so. I think you say, I hope. I think he will stay there. That's good stuff. Let's look at some of the other coaching situations around the country, by the way, before we go. We may take a quick look at college basketball. It's a little early. It's hard for me to get into it before Christmas. Coaching carousel. Mac Brown is out at UNC. Listen, he had a good career. He could not build a defense there. He will not coach. Rick, you had mentioned he should get to finish out the season. They let him finish out the regular season. Assuming they're going to a bowl game, he's not going to coach it. I think this went down really badly. The day before he got fired, he had talked about how he wanted to be back. I think they probably could have handled this a little better with a little more class. Mac Brown's given a lot to that program twice, 2 different stretches there, and he's the best coach they've had there. Just couldn't build a defense this second time around. Ryan Walters gets fired at Purdue. My guess is, I don't know what they're going to do there for this head coaching job, either one of these. Neil Brown, we just talked about, is out at West Virginia. Rumors, and maybe even a breaking news from Evan. Evan had set up here that it's being reported by Jacksonville State beat reporters that Rich Rodriguez has agreed to terms already with West Virginia. Gus Malzahn resigned at UCF. I mentioned earlier that there's some chatter around that UCF is sniffing around Lincoln Riley to see if he wants to get out ahead of the posse. You know, quite frankly, this is a job that I think should be pretty attractive. It's a league that's not overwhelming. It should be able to win. UCF has some of the best facilities in the country. There's a lot of money floating around this program, and they are hungry for a winner. And I think that this could be the best. This could be one of the best jobs available. They've got a great and very big alumni base. They've got a very good sized recruiting footprint. And as I said, great facilities, and I think any coach would be happy there. Shane Clark, who had pretty good success in 11 years, had his first losing season at Appalachian State, gets fired. Don't lose. I'm sorry. He had meant it. It was their first losing season in 11. This was Sean Clark's fifth year leading the program. 40-24 overall. You get fired easy now, man. One losing season. Goodbye. Mike McIntyre is out, I should say. Hold on one second. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, my God. I can't even tell who somebody. Oh, FIU fires Mike McIntyre. Mike Houston was fired by ECU, and Blake Carroll was promoted and also named the permanent coach as they made a run at the AAC championship afterwards. Fresno State's Jeff Tedford is gone for the second time. A little bit disappointing season out there in the Mountain West. His coaching career is probably over. Will Hall at Southern Miss is out. Blake Anderson's out at Utah State. Kevin Wilson is out at what is this? Isn't that terrible that you can't? Tulsa. Kevin Wilson is out. I'm sorry, Kevin Wilson is out at Tulsa. I just said that. Biff Poggi is out at Charlotte. Scott Abel is out Davidson. Stan Drayton is out at Temple. And when they have a new head coach, too, I believe Casey Keeler is the new head coach there. Jim McElwain, former Florida coach, Colorado State coach, has retired at Central Michigan. Casey Keeler, we said, left Sam Houston, who's had a pretty good run up here in their first couple of years at FBS 1. He leaves to go to Temple. Don Brown is fired at UMass. UMass, one of the worst teams in the country. UMass, Kent State, flip a coin. And UMass is never any good. Joe I'll never be able to say this again. Hazamariak was a successful coach at Maine that takes over that job. Mike New at Ball State was fired. They have a new coach in Mike Emaroff. I did say Scott Abel also took over for Mike Bloomgren. at Rice. I think I forgot to say that. Brian Bohannon out at Kennesaw State. And Jerry Mack, former Jacksonville Jaguar running back coach, is in. And Tom Herman, once one of the rising stars in college football at Houston, flamed out at Texas. He now flames out at Florida Atlantic. And Zach Kitley, Texas Tech offensive coordinator, gets that job. So interesting stuff there. I love Oregon because Danny hates Oregon. I love. I'm getting everything twice now from Paul. Notable retentions and extensions. Sam Pittman gets retained after some questions at Arkansas the last 2 years. Started off this year pretty well. They finished 6-6. But he keeps his job. Billy Napier, against all odds, probably had the biggest bullseye on his back. Florida played better than I would have expected. I mean, they do win 7 games, and all of his losses were to teams that at the time he lost to them were in the top 15. Dave Aranda surprises with Baylor bouncing back with a strong finish at Baylor. He'll stay. Rhett Lachey is extended, the SMU coach. No chance he was going to lose his job. He's done a really good job of building this SMU program up to where they're now going to compete for a national championship potentially. J.J. Kinney was extended at Texas State. And Trent Dilfer, a bit surprisingly, retained at UAB. A lot of speculation that he would be let go after 2 years. He's 7 and 17, in 2 years there. Again, Trent Dilfer was a surprising pick for that UAB job. But anyway. And that's college football, guys. What else? I didn't look at the news. What else you guys got for me? Let's see if there's any other news we want to report. Sooners quarterback Arnold will transfer, by the way, it looks like. Allen, I know Allen's gone, but he'd come back. He played well in that game against Alabama, played well to finish out the season. Gone. Lincoln Riley says on the inquiries that I referred to, he says, tell them I'm a USC Trojan. We'll see. Oregon flips 5-star cornerback. It was going to Ohio State. As we talked about, Paul, with the signing day, a lot of guys just flip. I mean, what's the point? The signing day is great, but we even have flips right here. Guys who are already committed somewhere, signed somewhere else. And then 2 months, they might be somewhere else. It's crazy. It looks like Madden, 4-star quarterback, Madden, and you could maybe speak on this, Danny, if you're still with me. Madden Lama Lavia spurns UCLA for Arkansas. Interesting. I'm not going to get into that. Both of the Oklahoma State coordinators were fired after a 3-9 season. No wins, as we talked about earlier in the Big 12. Talks that Mike Gundy might consider retiring as well. We'll see whether that happens. And also, that's kind of it. See what we got in the question box here today. I see that now about the flipping. Oh, the flipping. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, National Signing Day used to be a big deal because you knew where guys were going to go. Now you don't know. Guys commit and they decommit in a month. It's, again, used to have some fun. I think I want to look real quick at some college basketball just to wrap things up here tonight. We haven't talked much about this. Some of the big tournaments out in Maui, what is that tournament they play out there? Help me. Let's look at the new coaches poll. Connecticut had a really tough time of it out there. They lost 3 games playing in the, is it the Maui Invitational? I'm not even sure what they call that damn tournament now. You know what, Paul, I'll tell you what. I said before the year, I said we've lost a bunch of our audience, so we'll just talk, you and I. With all the nonsense I don't agree with, right? I understand the realities. I can't turn the clock back to 1975 or 1980 or whatever. Can't do that. I know that. Tried. I hate the NIL. I hate NIL, especially when you throw in the transfer portal on top of it. You can just leave every year. You can be a free agent every year. They offered this kid who's going to go to Ohio State to be the quarterback next year. Michigan next year. Sorry about that. $10.5 million, $10 million over 4 years. Well, he may never be there 4 years. Somebody might offer him $4 million 2 years from now. Anyway, I don't agree with any of it. I hate it all. I hate the realignment. I hate all this stuff that's gone on in college football the last 2 decades off the field. But I said, I'm trying to put that behind me, and I have. And I said, if I still feel the energy and I still feel the excitement on Saturdays, I'm okay. 1 year into this new reality in my mind, I still feel it. I feel it. 12-team playoffs had a lot to do with that. You guys who thought 12-team playoff, regular season doesn't matter. Well, you're wrong. Every week matters. You have seen upheaval after upheaval every week. The only constant has been Paul's Oregon Ducks. Everywhere else has been constant chaos throughout the season. That's fun. So, yes, I still love Saturdays. I still love college football. I hate all the crap that goes on around it. But game day is still a lot of fun. From 9 o'clock, I'm watching game day, doing some chores, watching game day. I'll have it on the TV and have it on my phone, take it wherever I'm going. Right through midnight, every Saturday. Now, take a break here and there, take my wife out to dinner, someplace where I can watch college football. I still care that much about the game. I care enough to drive 2.5 hours to Syracuse last week with my wife and my stepson and his girlfriend, and we had a great time at Syracuse, Miami, even losing the game. What a great environment. Being at a college football game is zero. Has nothing to do, there's nothing compared to the pros. The pros is nothing compared to college. The atmosphere at these games is so much different. The energy in the building is so much different. Anybody who ever wants to argue with me on that point, I will argue till the cows come home. And I still feel it. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at. The excitement is still there. You know, it's funny. My buddy and I were talking about this last weekend. It was my buddy or my stepson. I don't remember. But we were talking about Oregon. And there's got to be a lot of pressure on this guy to design 12 uniforms every year, right? Every week they got a different color combination. Now, is it fun? Yes. Is it? There's also an ulterior motive behind all this, right? Money and selling wearables, but still, it is fun. Some of them are hard to look at, but they've worn some good ones this year, Paul. I want to look at college basketball just real quick. And again, a quick shout out to anybody who wasn't watching earlier. I I talked very highly about one of the great characters and coaches in college basketball history. Louis Carnesecca passed away this past weekend. A lot of people, maybe outside of the Northeast, don't know Louis Carnesecca and the impact he had on college basketball in the 60s, in the 70s, and into the 80s. He spent 30 seasons basically at St. John's, 2 different stints. He left in the 70s to go coach the New York Nets in the ABA in between. But this guy was instrumental in the success of the Big East early in its infancy. Just a great character, a guy who I can't remember hearing every ex-player I'd ever spoken to, and I've interviewed a bunch of his ex-players. Matt Bruss is a big follower or supporter of this show. I've had him on to interview him, and I might get him on again once, the nerves aren't so raw. I mean, they looked at Louis like a second dad, or maybe in some cases a first dad. And he had impact on kids' lives the way you would hope somebody in his position would, but not all that many really do. And I grew up watching Louis Carnesecca early and became a St. John's fan because of it. I enjoyed watching them. I still root for the Johnnies today. A lot of my friends here in the Northeast are Syracuse fans and whatnot. In college basketball, I like the Johnnies. I'm a Marquette fan, was when I was a kid. I loved Al McGuire, another New York guy. But St. John's was my second team, but I kept rooting for St. John's because of Carnesecca and the character. And they always felt like they were an underdog story. Even in that 86 season when they had a great run, and they and Georgetown and Villanova all made it to the Final Four out of the Big East. And Louis' crowning moment, they got blown out by Georgetown after having 2 great battles with them during the regular season. They get blown out in the Final Four, but took nothing away from the great season and the great career that Louis had. And even besides being a great coach, he was a great influence on every one of these kids. And some of them came from tough backgrounds. And he was very, very well done. Louis C. was huge up here for sure. I mean, if you were, again, sometimes Northeast basketball gets lost nationally. Not as much today, but back in the 80s, the 70s and 80s, I mean, not a lot of people knew what was going on up here. But Louis, Jim Boeheim, John Thompson at Georgetown, and then Dave Gavitt at Providence, and then later putting the Big East together as the first commissioner and really being the linchpin of the Big East. That was a coaches' league, man. There were some great coaches that had come through the Big East, and that's what made that league. It was a made-for-TV league. Those Monday night matchups, and you'd see the coaches, and I can remember Rick Barnes going at it with John Thompson, and Louis wearing this ugly sweater, and John Thompson wearing the same one. Louis wouldn't take it off because they got on a win streak. That might have been during the 86 season, actually. A lot of good stuff. Paul, I thought you would have been a BC fan. Some great coaches up there. Gary Williams, Dr. Tom Davis. Who else coached there at BC? Gary Williams. Somebody else, I can't think of who I'm thinking of now. Is a pretty big name at BC. That was Jerry Tarkanian bit the towel. Tark was always out in front of the the NCAA police. He had a great team at Long Beach State. They got put on probation. He went to Vegas, and he turned that into a powerhouse in the 70s and 80s, into the 90s. One step ahead of the NCAA all the time. Jimmy V was a great coach here first at Iona. Did great things. Took them to the NCAA tournament. I believe 1 year he beat Virginia in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And then, of course, he went to NC State, and we know what happened there in 1983 with the big upset. There's a great documentary. Here I am. I hate ESPN, but I'm always plugging their 30 for 30s. There's a great documentary about that 83 season and Jimmy V. It's a lot of his players talking about it. It's called Survive and Advance, and it's just a great documentary. Check that out. Who's surprising right now in college basketball? Kansas is at number 1. We got Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky, Marquette, Iowa State, Gonzaga, Purdue, Duke. Nothing really surprising in that grouping. Alabama, Wisconsin, Oregon. Oregon's a bit of a surprise at 8-0. Paul, they jumped 14 spots in this latest poll. No league, not a lot of league play yet, so it's a little tough to start getting into teams. We will. After the first of the year and after college football winds down, we'll certainly be full bore in college basketball. But I haven't really taken a real hard look at these rankings until this past week or so. Cincinnati have a bit of surprise at 14. Houston only 4-3. Big surprise. They dropped out of the top 10 this week. Really been a good basketball team over the last 4 or 5 years. Pittsburgh at 7-1. Ole Miss 6-1. UConn dropped all the way to 25. They dropped 23 spots in a week when they lost 3 games out there at the Maui Classic. And St. John's, now coached by Rick Pitino, also had a few missteps here early in the year. But we'll get more into college basketball as the year goes on. You've always liked Oregon. You like those Northwest teams. Gonzaga's had a great program. Mark Few is an underrated coach. One of the most underrated coaches in the game. Danny's back with us. Alabama's going to be good in basketball. They got a really good coach. I like Nate Oates as a really good coach. They've had good teams the last few years. Last year, a little bit disappointing, maybe. I think Duke's going to be really good under John Shire this year, with a couple years now under his belt after taking over for Coach K. The further you get away from the man, the better your chances are. So I'm going to have to run, guys, because I'm going to be on here with, if you want to, I'll try to share the show if I can. If I can't, I'll be on Sports Scope with Robert Butler. You can search that out on Facebook, and we'll check in with you guys next week. Yeah, Pitino did ruin the Celtics for sure. He should never have gone there. So we got to jump on with Robert Butler, and I'll try to share it to my page. If I can't, guys, look for Sports Scope, SKOPE, Robert Butler. Search it on Facebook, and you'll see me there. You guys have a great week. It's going to be an exciting weekend, and we'll talk next week. We'll finally have the final series, and we'll go